Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Finance and General Purposes Committee of the Biggleswade Town Council. A reminder of certain formalities. To meeting attendees, this is a formal meeting. I can advise that members of the public will be given an opportunity to speak during public open session, but not at other times. The meeting is being filmed, and by being present, attendees are deemed to have agreed to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings. I can advise that attendees should not disclose any personal information of individuals, as this would infringe the data protection rights of that individual. And may I please ask everyone to mute their microphones when not speaking. The first item on the agenda today is apologies for absence. I have two apologies, one from Councillor Barrett, one from Councillor Russell. I think everyone else is present, so that's the apologies. Item 2 on the agenda is declarations of interest. To receive statutory declarations of interest from members in relation to a disclosable pecuniary interest in any agenda item. Have any members got anything to disclose? And item B is to disclose any non-pecuniary interest in any agenda item, and no disclosures there. Moving on to Chairman's announcements, I have no announcements other than welcome everybody to the new councillors, particularly to their first meeting of the Finance and General Purposes Committee of this year of the Council, and I will do my best to manage the meeting appropriately. Item 4 on the agenda is the public open session. We have no members physically present in the chamber tonight, and there none are online, so I wish I could get through all the meetings as quickly as this if we're going at this rate. So item 5, invited speaker, there are none. Item 6 on the agenda is members' questions. Do any members have any questions? If there's no questions, I will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the minutes and recommendations of meetings. First of all, the minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee meeting held on Tuesday, the 21st of March in this chamber. You have the papers before you. I appreciate that very few members who were actually present today were present then, so I'll go through them using the pages numbered as per the agenda items. Page 5. We're just going for accuracy at the moment rather than details. Page 6, page 7, page 8, and page 9. If there are no comments, is it your wish that we approve the minutes and that I sign them as a true and correct record?
Move it.
Any observations? So that's carried. Thank you. Right, then we're on to matters arising. Again, coming back to page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, and page 9. So there's no matters arising. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is items for consideration. This is item 9A, new financial management reports. This has been prepared by the finance manager. Would you like to introduce that, Mr. Youngs, please?
This is part of a very long process, part of the finance review, in trying to present to council some more appropriate financial information, because there has been criticism in the past that the reports have probably been too long and too detailed, and so this has been an attempt by myself, town clerk, the chair and the deputy chair to present some more appropriate reports.
Members, have you got any comments, please, on this? You've seen the recommendation that is that we adopt. All this information is still available to councillors and indeed on our website to the public as a whole. So nothing is going to be hidden, but what we have got, we will have the ability to just have a briefer report for the meetings with more of a summary. Mr. Tarrant.
I just wanted to reiterate a point, which was obviously, as the finance manager has been saying, this is a combination of a very lengthy process. It's worth reiterating, though, what the objective was connected to this. As the chairman says, the detailed transactional information is still available and still goes as a transparent document onto our website. The expectation was, in combination with members, was to try and be as succinct as possible and produce a single-page summary document that highlights individual cost centers from the point of view expenditure and income, provides a net position, provides a projected outturn, which is one option. And the second option is, rather than individualizing the income elements, to put one global income element as a balancing figure at the bottom. And there's two options. Our own preference as officers is probably number one, because then you get to see it at a much more transactional level between expenditure and income per cost center. Thank you.
Members, have you got any comments? Councillor Allbone.
Yeah, it seems to me that option A is the option A, option one. Yeah, option A. That seems to be the most sensible way. So I would like to propose a recommendation as set out in the papers that we adopt option A going forward. I imagine that if in the fullness of time that members do have issues with the way that the information presented, then we can ask for it to be examined again.
I thought that's the case, but Mr. Tarrant, perhaps you just confirm that.
That's absolutely the case, and I think what I also should have said was whatever members initially conclude upon this evening, obviously that information will then be used in our regular reports to full council. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the other thing to note in here is the fact that you've got the commentary, which then helps members understand the detail. So with the line by line transactions, it's all very well, but it still doesn't help what the issues are. So actually having the commentary, I think, is important, and the fact that there is the link to the documents available to members to look at, also on the website as well, is essential. So if I may, I'm happy to second Councillor Allbone's proposal.
Does anyone else have any further comments before I put it to the vote? The one thing I would also say, following Councillor Foster's comments, is the notes are also helpful to the public as well, because otherwise just the bare figures are very difficult. So if there's no further discussion, all those in favour, please indicate. That is carried unanimously. Thank you to the officers for their efforts in having brought this forward. I think this is hopefully going to make things a lot smoother. Item B is a report on source of growth items. Again, Mr. Youngs, you seem to going to be busy this evening.
I'm just trying to think of something extra to add to the report, really.
Shall I help? Yeah.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. So obviously, in discussion with members, when we set the original estimates for the existing financial year, we set a very tight budget. In doing that, there was bound to be some mid-term growth elements, those budgets which were going to be straining, and they're summarized on page 32 of the pack. Fortunately, there are still headings which are underspent, and in this report, the finance managers put forward some suggestions about where we might via money in the interim. At the same time, there are other emerging growth items that we're not yet ready to suggest a solution for. Yeah, and we want to monitor those, and we'll put a further report forward to determine where those monies can be taken to balance those emerging items. But we're not yet ready to have concrete financial information associated with that. But effectively, this balances out those negative items. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, members' comments, you'll see the recommendation is that members approve the 4 requested environments. Councillor Knight and then Councillor Allbone.
Thank you. I wonder if Rob could explain a little bit more detail about the bank charges, and it looks like they were £800 more expensive than expected, please.
Yes, indeed. We've now got 3 credit card machines, which are proving fairly expensive to run. and potentially and all three are on a 12-month contract. I would suggest probably moving forward that we would reduce that down to 2 machines potentially, but also the budget for the bank charges was reduced probably too far, hence the overspend.
Okay, thank you. I mean, on the card machines, obviously there are lots of different models and it does depend on the volume of transactions, but you can buy those for about 20 quid. So I think an urgent review of that's needed to see if there's a cheaper option, please. The other question I had, if I may, is in relation to the website. Now, I see tonight you're not recommending that we make a vehement for that, but obviously the website's relatively new and fairly new technology. £1,500 seems quite a lot. Is this potentially to fund sort of business as usual maintenance, or is there some additional work that's been scoped out, some additional functionality that requires consultancy there, please?
May I answer?
Yes.
Yeah. Sir. Okay. These are some of the questions I'm not ready to answer yet, but one of the things that it's been highlighted to me is there is an ongoing maintenance agreement with the contractor in place. There's been some price inflation associated with that, but what there is not, as far as I can ascertain, and I'm not aware of it, any what you might call project work associated with it. Yeah. So we'll come back with some recommendations in a detailed report.
Thank you.
Members.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got a question on point 1, councillor training. So obviously with new councillors coming on board this time, there's been a big focus on training, but also during the inter-election years, then there is some training. So I was looking for the heading that councillor training might be under, and I failed, but that's perhaps because I wasn't looking in the right place. But the point I was going to make, hoping to make, was we knew there was an election coming up, and we could have perhaps sort of anticipated that there will be new members as a result. So I would suggest that it's budgeted for in an election year in the future. So I assume it wasn't budgeted at all or enough, but
Yes, correct. It was an oversight, unfortunately, but it's certainly something that in 4 years' time it could be included.
I mean, there is a sum of money of £4,000 set aside to cover the costs associated with the election process, but there was insufficient money set aside for the training that we commissioned from the Bedford Association of Town and Parish Councils. Councillor Alban.
yeah. So there is a training budget during the 4-year period between elections, because perhaps that's something we should consider.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, I think the officers can look into the comments, both Councillor Knight's comments and Councillor Alban's comments as raised. Councillor Agnew.
We will also have F&GP meeting sometimes in October. So I suggest maybe before the meeting, we'll sit as a group and discuss the items 1, 2, 3, especially with regards to the website budgeting. Maybe by that point, we will have better quotes or understanding on the project work. Thank you.
Have members got any further comments? I think this is an ongoing process that we're obviously, you've seen officers have been refining the reporting process. So I think this is an ongoing process, and I'm sure that officers will be updating us as necessary. Are there any further comments, or could I have a recommendation, please?
Can I make a proposal then that we accept the recommendation for the 4 vehements, but ask officers to investigate the banking charges relating to the card machines to see if there is any way of reducing that in the future, and obviously to make sure we get more detail around the website before that comes back to the committee, please.
Just to come back on the credit card machine, these are the only credit card machines that Unity Trust will actually use, and that was the problem.
You don't need to actually have a credit card terminal from your main bank. So, for example, a sum up reader, 20 quid to buy online, obviously only suitable for low volumes, but would pay into Unity Trust. So I think it's worth exploring other options.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Tarrant.
Yeah, I don't think it does any harm for us to refresh and just examine the possibilities. Thank you.
And we have got the bank on the agenda in a minute, so there may be issues there that members will also wish to raise on that. So your recommendation, your proposed recommendation with the addition that officers investigate the rate of bank charges and also review the website provision and costings.
Exactly.
Is that seconded by anybody? Further comments, please? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please signify. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Right, we're now moving on to items for information. First one is 10A, is the finance review. Again, another report from Mr. Youngs. Would you like to just introduce it?
So within the last 3 or 4 minutes, this has just changed because the management accounting arrangements, which is number 1, has now been approved. So therefore, we're literally just down to the 2 car parking items, which I understand will be reach a conclusion by the end of August.
Members, any comments or questions, please? If Councillor Knight.
I propose to we note the report as per the recommendation.
That's seconded. Any further comment? Or in that case, I'll put it to vote. All those in favour? You've got a very quiet evening tonight.
If only.
Any additions to your written report, please?
Not really. It's a fairly honest report, I believe, in highlighting that mostly it's been a success and it's worked well. I think from the point of view of the monthly backs runs, I think they are running very smoothly, which is great. Potentially, actually paying the cash in at the local post office is a little bit of an issue, just because the post office want the money to be paid in full bags, and of course the amount of coins that we have through the car parking machines just will never just fall neatly into full bags.
Members' questions. All I was going to just say, just to add to what Mr. Youngs has said, is that there's pluses and minuses in moving to any bank, and we went from a high street bank to an online bank. The online bank outsourced certain elements of its functions as well, which makes it a challenge sometimes. But generally speaking, my conversations with the Deputy RFO are that the emerging issues are manageable, and the decision was the right decision by members. Thank you.
Councillor Allbone.
Yeah, it's a question really on the car park machine cash and in that area. So are you able to query through the back office system how full the machines are with cash? When we had the tenderers come in, I thought at least one of them said that you could do that, and if so, is it possible to sort of arrange collections depending on how it fits into the post office's limits?
Officers, would someone like to answer that, please?
Okay. This is one of those instances where I don't think we know the answer to the question. So if you don't mind, if you could bear with us, we'll find out and report back to you. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I've got some similar recollection that there was something in that report when they were presenting it, that there is a function that is traceable, but it's still very early days with this new system. So if that could be looked into. Are there any further questions or observations, please, on this particular report? If they're not, I think if are members happy that we note it?
Yeah, noted.
Thank you. members.
There has been an update on Unity Trust literally yesterday. I got an email from their customer services just to confirm that all of the new signatories had passed all of their checks, which is probably good news. And therefore, all of the new members on the bank will be receiving information through the post within the next 5 working days. I guess moving forward from that, I'm more than happy to offer any training, any help to get people online and help as much as I can.
In that respect, may I suggest that members, when they receive their letters, let Mr. Youngs know that they've received them and make the appropriate arrangements so that all members can function fully. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. I'd certainly like to take you up on the offer of some training, please. Maybe we can have a group session for the new signatories. Other than that, can I propose that we note the report per the recommendation, please?
That's seconded. Before we wishes to say something.
Just ever so quickly, just to say, for those people who are new signatories, there are obviously 2 options on the table for you. You're very welcome to go online at home and free up the resources from there. Alternatively, in our members' room, there's a breakout room here. There is a computer set up that you can use and if that's more convenient for you from a work perspective, please take advantage of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure members will take up. Councillor Foster, you wish to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to make the point that as signatories, all signatories will receive the documentation, and I highly recommend actually taking the time to have a look through the documentation, because it does sort of show what the council is spending its money on, and also it gives more detail behind. So when you come to see the reports, the two things tie up, and it's. Yeah, and there are some challenges, and I think there is one where every time I ask you the same question around, and there's one item and I know the answer to now, but it's generally it's very much well worth looking at the detail because it helps the understanding.
Thank you for those observations. I'm sure all members will exercise due diligence in that respect. Thank you. And that's that item covered. So we're now on to item 10D, which is the quarterly bank reconciliations. A further report, which I think is fairly self-explanatory. Is there anything you wish to add, Mr. Youngs?
Just really that to thank Councillor Woodhead very much for giving his time, and that it was great to get it done so quickly, but within a few days of the new quarter, and it's a process that and now that it's really established properly, that we will make sure that we adhere to.
Good. Thank you very much, and thank you for your comments concerning Councillor Woodhead's assistance, which I'm sure we all appreciate having occurred. Are there any comments that members would wish to make? Councillor Albone.
Yeah, so it's about selecting the councillor that does this process. How do we do that? I imagine it's on a voluntary basis, but it would be good, I think, to have some sort of rotation so that there's so that the same individual isn't doing it each time.
Well, from the chair, if I may, and I think Mr. Youngs would appreciate it if there were different people, because I think that's good governance as well. And also it's spread the load around the council, because if it's done on a quarterly basis with 15 councillors over 4 years, it just about gets everybody one opportunity to do the reconciliation. Any further comments, Mr. Youngs?
Well, yeah, and also we do offer free chocolate biscuits as well, which
members will please note that last fact. I'm sure that's the most important part of it from there. Thank you.
Could I just reiterate though that we did ask for volunteers for this, and that member put their names forward, and equally obviously that applies to all members. Thank you.
Councillor Foster.
But it's quite clear it doesn't involve signatories, is the important fact.
Yes.
So it's a rotation of 9 rather than 15.
Thank you for pointing out my omission in that part. Did you wish to say something further, Councillor Albone? Right.
surely not. As expected, because it's the first quarter of the new financial year, you wouldn't really expect there to be many environments at this stage. And the only two that there have been are related to just moving the PWLB money across into the appropriate accounts code. We will be expecting several more, as we've obviously agreed before this evening. So this report for quarter two should have a lot more detail on.
Thank you. Mr. Tarrant, you look as though you wish to say something.
What I was going to say was just to reiterate what's in previous reports. Obviously, PWLB money is treated in a completely different way to follow the kind of a clear audit trail. And both our internal and external auditor will be looking through our detailed financial records associated with this. And we're particularly cautious, obviously, with PWLB monies, that external government will also be looking at our spending patterns. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any comments? Or is it your wish that we note it and move on? Madam, thank you. We'll move on. Item 10F, Risk Management Update Report. Mr. Youngs.
I have some notes here that I've made along with the head of governance this afternoon, so forgive me for just reading these out. Just to confirm that there is a live document which is on the councillor SharePoint page as a viewing item only. Of the three highlighted risks in the report, we believe that the ICT security risk is high, and it's evolving level of IT training to both staff and members. Additionally, the IT security picture is one which Node are looking at in the near future, and have advised that both officers and members can be assured by a third party on their compliance levels regarding usage and devices. The second item, the bank data risk. This is a risk really because it's at the moment it's only me that can input payment information onto the bank, which is obviously a risk because if I was to be run over by a bus or taken ill or actually go on holiday, then we would be stuck. There is a report that's coming to Town Council next week, which will be recommending two more finance staff to be put onto the bank. The third and final item is to do with the public realm, fleet and age. It's been an ongoing issue for several years that the fleet is obviously aging. We've had we managed to set aside a sufficient level of repairs and maintenance because we have a reasonable budget in that level. So this year we seem to be coping. It's potentially an issue that moving forward, we would need to be looking at growth items and probably increasing the budget in this area for some new vehicles.
Thank you. Any members' comments, please, and the questions? The one observation I would make, we note the fleet requirements, which is, I imagine, for public realm largely, which would fall under the PLOS area. It may be something that Chairman of PLOS would like to take on board in terms of reviewing the fleet issues and what the actual requirements are with regard to equipment, so that it can be included in the budgeting process for the next year and indeed going onwards. To North.
Yes, I agree totally. I think this is something that we have looked at, but it was, I think there are two specifics. We did knowingly scale back the budgeting process of just under a year ago. We did scale back the ideas of replacing some of the vehicles, so we knew that they were aging and therefore liable for maintenance and breakdown. Also, as far as the lawnmower is concerned, that was delayed and deferred, and it's now December that it's going to be delivered. So it seems to have taken over a year to actually acquire this thing, which is not ideal because we don't have a lawnmower.
Thank you for those observations and I note
But we
those.
will, yes, I think in the, again, this will be looked at very carefully again for the budgeting exercise coming up, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Tarrant.
The determination of the new lawnmower is wholly consistent with what we agreed with members, actually. So we delayed the taking on the new lawnmower for a period of time because of the general crisis connected to actually trying to procure new machinery. It's very difficult to get a specialist piece of equipment like that. So it's wholly in keeping what we were planning. But unfortunately, obviously, the old piece of kit that we had has had some problems of late, and has caused us problems associated with that. And there's another specialist piece of kit that's also now failed as well. But all these items will be picked up as part of the growth cycle, and then members will come to a decision on what's appropriate.
Thank you. Any for Councillor Agnew?
I was wondering whether maybe number 4 item will eventually have to appear on this list with regards to the risk regarding the public realm people, personnel, as in when we were talking about personnel during the bus tour organized for councillors. I remember talking to Jonathan and he was mentioning, perhaps I am being mistaken, but that at some point I will go and retire. And I wonder whether we have any kind of risk management associated with the personnel. Thank you.
Tarrant.
So some of our public realm operatives are heading towards retirement. The next one that leaves us is in approximately 3.5 years from now. So we've got a period of time to deal with that. However, there is a certain specialist skill set associated with certain tasks. And we are looking to, and we are doing it on a regular basis. We're trying to kind of pass that skill down, but it is quite specialist in nature. But that's certainly something we're cognizant of. Yeah.
Thank you for those observations. Any further comments or observations, or is it your wish that we note the report and move on to the next item? All those in favour of moving on? Thank you. The next item is 10G, the new internal auditor. Again, the report there is Mr. Young's. I'm not sure whether he's got any comments to add to it.
I really don't. It's just the information on the report. Looking forward to the new auditor coming in October, and obviously I believe that yourself would like to spend some time with the new internal auditor.
Thank you. Yes, I'd actually recommend that myself, Councillor Agnew as my vice chairman, and the mayor and the deputy mayor have the opportunity to meet with the new internal auditor. I think that is good governance to have the opportunity to meet with respect to officers without officers, so that things can be openly done. It's done in many organisations, so I think that would be quite appropriate. So if the members that I've just mentioned would like to put the 11th of October in their diary, and if you could, in due course, Mr. Young's, fit in a time slot as far in advance as possible with the new auditor, we'd welcome that, because I think it'd be good in any event for the internal auditor to meet with the appropriate members.
Certainly will do. Yeah.
Councillor Allbone.
Thank you. Yeah, I wonder if, for my benefit, because I always forget what AGAR stands for, if it could be in the report at least sort of mentioned by its full name once. That would be helpful to me, which is Annual Governance and Accountability Return, I believe. But I always forget that. But I have a question. So we've got a new auditor. So how do we go about assessing the performance of the auditor?
Mr. Tarrant.
Okay. So as part of the renewal process, members will remember that I put forward a specification, and it's a good practice specification based on NAUC's guidelines. And that is like a performance specification that you can then manage and measure the effectiveness of the auditor against. And we're doing the same thing with our IT contract. So the finance manager can put together a future report and can look at the work and reports that they produce and then measure them against that and come to a view about the effectiveness. Thank you.
Any further questions, members? Councillor Knight.
Propose we note the report.
Is that seconded? All those in favour? Item 10H, contracts database update report. Again, Mr. Youngs.
I have an update. I sat down with the head of governance this afternoon, and I've got some written notes. Again, this is a live document that's on the Councillor SharePoint page as viewing only. We just wanted to really reiterate that significant progress has been made by officers to sharpen and cleanse the database that was in place, and I think it's now appropriate for use for going forward. There are very few contracts remaining on the database which are approaching their expiry dates at the moment, which again is good news. The main one is probably telephony, which expires in October 2023, and waste removal, which expires in April 24. The waste removal particularly is quite a high spend for the council, so that's officers will spend a lot of time on that, trying to find the correct way forward. Officers are presently tendering for the VoIP telephony offer, and a report will go prior to the October 23 on this topic. And just really to finish, that officers are routinely monitoring the database with an eye on the contracts pipeline.
Thank you. Mr. Tarrant, I think you wish to say something.
All I would say is that in the telephony perspective, there's been some commentary to council before connected to this, and there's been some requests of members that there's a certain level of transactional detail that makes it very clear about what the intentions are. And the new report that will come to council will remedy that previous report. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions or observations, please? No questions or observations. Move we note the report. Thank you. Right, we're now on to the second public open session. Now, we've got no members of the public physically present today. Have we got any members of the public online? So effectively, there are no exempt items. So I thank everyone for their attendance this evening. You've given me a very easy ride, I'm delighted to say, as chairman. So I think that brings the meeting to a close.